everyone, and welcome to another episode of LA Rams Central. The regular format is sort of in play. We're going to be filming today and tomorrow. And by we, I mean me, Anthony Manna, and Lewicki. That's right. So, LA Rams Central is almost back on track. The holiday season's going to mess some things up, but we'll be okay. I'm not going to jump in with the Ram game because we're going to spend a lot of time on that. We're going to do the recaps. And the first game that I want to recap is the week 1 matchup that was supposed to be, that is now week 11, and that's Tampa Bay at Miami. Game was pretty cut and dry. Miami lost their quarterback due to concussion protocol. Miami is a complete dumpster fire this year. They're inconsistently bad, and their offense is just abysmal. And I don't understand Adam Gase's mindset of, I don't get along with Ajayi. I'm going to prove a point to him by trading him to the best team in football. That'll show him. Meanwhile, we have no running game. I have to say Kenyon Drake's been doing pretty well, but this was a Buccaneer victory over the Dolphins. Surprising, maybe. I know me and you both picked Miami, but I don't think it was too surprising. Good win for Tampa Bay. Fitzpatrick looked like he did pretty well. He played in that game, right, Eric?
Tampa Bay is 2-0 with Fitzpatrick 2-6 with Jameis Winston starting. It was a great deal to look into those stats. Do I think Cutler was concussed? Yes and no. He also threw 3 picks, so they might have used concussion as maybe hey, that's why he's not feeling well type of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to question somebody's toughness, especially Jay Cutler. I know I've ragged on the guy so many times. He got ragged on in the 2010 NFC Championship game against Packers. He is tough. He does play tough. Did he get a concussion? It's a good question. I don't know. But he did throw 3 picks in the game. So,
well, the only problem.
Make of it what you will. Make of it what you will. But Tampa Bay needed that game. I know everybody needs a football game, but you're right with dumpster fire. But Tampa looked pretty good. They got Mike Evans back, and that was a big difference right there.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Jay Cutler being concussed is you can't tell by looking at the guy. He always looks concussed. So that is what it is. Sorry to be so brutal, but it's true. All right, Detroit at Chi-Town. Eric, take it away.
Yeah, this game was actually interesting on many fronts. Coming into this game, the Bears played a lackluster game against Green Bay the week before. They came in. They actually started out really good against Detroit. Detroit clawed its way back. They're a halfway decent team. I don't want to call them like a good team or a great team yet, but as I mentioned, as far as what was going to happen in this game with Stafford throwing the ball, he attempted 31 passes. I thought it was going to be more in the 40 range, but it was 31. He kept his poise. He hit his wide receiver. Marvin Jones had a huge day. He had 85 yards receiving. I don't want to say huge day, but he was open when the Lions needed him. Trubisky had a great game too. He had 1 turnover. It was returned for a touchdown, a fumble, basically a sack fumble. But Jordan Howard looked good coming back from a lackluster performance against Green Bay. Had 125 yards rushing. Tariq Cohen finally got the ball. 31 touches in that game. Also scored a touchdown, so it was big for him. The Bears were a field goal away from tying the game going into overtime, and they were lined up on the right hash marks, and the team sailed about 10 to 15 yards even further wide right. So, in essence, they cut Connor Bunt. They signed Cairo Santos a couple days later. And so, the Bears are 3-7. It was one of those games that I thought the Bears could win. They were in the game pretty much the whole time. They just couldn't hold the lead because they had a lead early on. And they also lost Leonard Floyd in the game to an injured MCL and PCL. So he might be out a few weeks. He might be out for the rest of the season. That's a big blow to their defensive front seven. So the Bears are 3-7. Detroit is a game or two over 500. They're playing well, and Stafford had another fourth quarter comeback. Say what you want about the guy, but he is clutch.
Yeah, I had a subscriber, or not a subscriber, but somebody commented because I used profanity. It went into the "Do you want to approve this?" comment, which I didn't. But they said that I said the Bears defense is better than the Vikings. Now, I did a lot of shows last week, and I said a lot of things. I talked a lot of smack, and I'm not going to say that I didn't say that, but it doesn't sound like something I would have said. And if I did say it, it wasn't meant in the sense that the Bears are better than the Vikings. It was simply meant that this year the Bears have been better at forcing the turnover for the big play than Minnesota. That's the only area I think the Bears have it on the Vikings. Their turnovers, they tend to turn into points on defense, while the Vikings get the turnover and then the offense has to move the ball. There hasn't been a lot of pick sixes or fumble returns for touchdowns in Minnesota. Not saying there hasn't been any, but not as much as Chicago. So if I had said that, I severely was either misunderstood or completely was discombobulated and said the wrong thing, because by no means did I even think, as much trash talking as I did, that I think the Bears defense is better than the Vikings. But I didn't think the Vikings defense was as good as it was. We'll get to that later. I just want to clear that up. Not saying I didn't say it, just saying I'm a little surprised if I did, and I certainly didn't mean it the way it came out, if that's what I said. Jacksonville at Cleveland, not a lot to say here. If you're not on the Blake Bortles bandwagon yet, I'm not saying that he's a great quarterback. I'm not saying that he's a really good quarterback. What I am saying is he is a good quarterback if you have the team around him. Good enough to win you football games. I know that the Jaguar running game really stepped up and definitely played well, but Bortles was efficient when he needed to be. He got the big drive towards the end. But make no mistake about it, this team is carried by their defense. And Jacksonville's defense had a cupcake, wet toilet paper matchup here. In Cleveland. The Browns are they're pathetic in every facet of the game. And it pains me to say that because I do like the Browns, but there's not much to say here. Jacksonville did what they need to do. I'm not impressed with the win, but who gives a flying fart? They're 7-3. So kudos to Jacksonville. They're in first place. They continue to win. They'll continue to gobble up the dubs, and they'll make the postseason. And how far they get will determine entirely upon their defense and that running game. Not much to say there. Baltimore, Green Bay, E. Go ahead and take it.
Yeah, Baltimore, as I mentioned on the show last week, where the Bears made Brett Hundley look like a serviceable quarterback. Well, insert Baltimore Ravens defense, insert shutout of Green Bay, insert 3 interceptions by Brett Hundley. Like I mentioned, he's not a serviceable quarterback in that regard. So, the Ravens look like the Ravens of old. Okay, they were pressuring Hundley left and right. They had drives. They went for it probably, I want to say, 3 or 4 times in the fourth down in the fourth quarter, third and fourth quarter, and they couldn't capitalize. They weren't able to get into field goal range. They weren't able to sustain long drives. Jordy Nelson showed up in the first quarter, and then he was absent quarters 2, 3, and 4. This is the third game in a row that Devontae Adams has led the Packers in receiving yards. And so we all know who Brett Hundley's favorite target is, but he needs to utilize everyone in the passing game. Cobb, Adams, Nelson, and even maybe throw some screen passes to keep the defense honest. But Baltimore came to play. Green Bay didn't. 23-0. I'm looking at the passing, rushing, and receiving leaders for this, and it's littered with Packers players. But the scoreboard is what matters the most, and Flacco got the job done. Justin Tucker had a few field goals to go along there, and Alex Collins had 49 yards and a touchdown. So Baltimore got it done on the road.
Yeah, Arizona at Houston. Blaine Gabbert played, and as I said on my show earlier in the week, last week, I think Blaine Gabbert could very well be the answer to a lot of the Cardinals' problems, provided Bruce Arians continues to work with them. Um, I did watch some of the game. I didn't watch a lot of it because I was so focused on the Rams and Vikings, Saints, and Redskins game. But living in Arizona, you're going to get a lot of the play-by-play and a lot of the updates on it. And when the Cardinals were down 24-21, and yes, they were down 24-21 because of a bad pick, his only pick of the game by Blaine Gabbert, they had a fourth and
He had two.
yeah, but that was the one that was really crippling because it was in a tie game and they turned it into a field goal. The other one was in garbage time when they were trying to come back, and I don't even worry about that. But they were down 24-21. It was 4th and 2, and they went for it. And it was really bad execution on the Cardinals' offensive line's part, and they didn't pick up a blitz, and it didn't result well for Arizona, and they ended up losing the game because Houston took the ball after that, marched up the field, made a 10-point game, and at that point they were playing catch up. But he was going, he was going pretty well there in the first half for Arizona, but a little bit of a slow start, then he caught fire. I'm not saying that he is a great quarterback or even a good quarterback. I'm saying he moves the ball for Arizona and he does what they need to do through the air, certainly better than Drew Stanton. So he should get the start coming up this week. But this was really a game.
He has been named the starter, by the way.
Yeah, Blaine Gabbert?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And I don't think it's a bad call based on the way he played. He certainly didn't earn the right to be benched from that performance. But the Houston Texans really needed to win this game. They were home. They were playing a team that they match up with, at least offensively, with a third-string quarterback playing. And give Houston credit where credit's due. They played well enough to win the game. They ran the ball. They connected with their wide receivers when they needed to. Savage was good enough, and the Cardinals got the L. And this is really a bad year for the Cardinals. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but does David Johnson come back next week against the Rams or the following week?
David Johnson hasn't been cleared to play.
Excuse me. I know he hasn't been cleared to play this week, but I'm wondering about next week. They said a 12-week injury, so
yeah, a couple weeks ago he finally got the cast off of his wrist. He said it was still weak, so I know they're taking it day by day with him, but there's no set timeline still that I have heard of when he might be back.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see what that happens there because that'll be a pretty good two-headed monster that they might have down the stretch. But will it be good enough? Who knows? Washington at New York.
Actually, hold on, Anthony. Before you continue, I'd like to add a couple of things to this. Bruce Arians post-game basically took the blame on calling that 4th and 1 run call with Adrian Peterson, thinking that he could get the first down. On Monday, he actually backtracked and said, it was a good play call. Our offensive coordinator drew up a hell of a play, and basically we just couldn't execute. So Arians went and took the blame to deflecting the blame to his players, which in certain cases to me that's okay because they're the ones who have to execute. Arians can only do so much as far as calling the plays and running those plays in practice, whether that's from him or the offensive coordinator. But I just found it fascinating that he took the blame to start out with, and then Monday he's like, forget everything I said at post game, and you can make this your headline. But we had the right play call, we just didn't execute, we missed the block.
Well, I mean that's what
and Houston, what are they doing next play? They scored a touchdown.
Right.
And give credit to Houston for coming out and doing that because they could have easily, with Tom Savage as their quarterback, could have been like, oh hey, here's the ball back, but they executed and they took the ball in mid territory on the Cardinal side. So
well, the thing is that's what film study does. Film study. I had a conversation with you Sunday, and after looking at the game film on Monday, my tune is very different than it was when we talked on Sunday. And when you watch it, and they showed it here, the guard, instead of picking up the stunt, assumes his guy is vacating the area and goes and doubles on another guy, and the stunt comes through untouched and blows it up. and you could tell that that was a bad play on the lineman's part, and they just didn't execute, not recognizing the stunt, whatever the case may be. So I'm actually, as a coach, I'm okay with what Arians did. You take the blame initially because, it cost your team the game essentially. But when you go back and look at film, if you can deflect the blame, and in a sense, he backs up his own coordinator and says, no, that was a great call. I think that's important too. Sometimes you have to do that as a coach and let your crappy team know, quit playing like crap. Arizona.
And Larry Fitzgerald keeps climbing up the wide receiver receiving yards mark. So shout out to him as he cracks the top 5.
Yeah, he just signed a 1-year extension here in Arizona.
Right.
So that's new too. All right, Washington at New Orleans. Now, you guys may recall I had 3 upset games, or 4 games that could be potential upsets to look out for. I don't have them written down. Let's say I have them here. I don't. Is it on here? Maybe it's in here. Maybe not. Oh, that was my playoff prediction. That's that. I don't think I have it here. Oh yeah, here it is. Raiders, Patriots, forget that. Atlanta over Seattle, that was my other upset. But I had Chicago as a potential upset. Not that I picked Chicago, I picked Detroit. And that turned out to be a really close game. This one did as well. Washington at New Orleans was a really good game. The Redskins should have won it. I'm gonna blame this one on the officials. I've never seen this before. Not only did they screw up on the same play, not only did they screw up once, not twice, but 3 times. So, for those of you that didn't see the game, they have the ball at the Saints' 35-yard line. Kirk Cousins takes the snap. His receivers run quick slants. He's expecting somebody to run a quick out. He takes the ball, he steps, and he throws it, and it ends up going out of bounds because the receivers are going in, and he threw it out. He wasn't under pressure. He wasn't in the grasp. It was obviously a miscommunication. The play before, the Redskins got out of bounds. So understand here, the clock is stopped. That's going to explain the second screw up in a minute. So the clock is stopped. Then he throws his pass incomplete, and they rule it intentional grounding, which was the most ridiculous intentional grounding call I've ever seen high school football is what I coach, and I've never seen a high school referee blow that call that badly. Now, that wasn't it. Not only did they call intentional grounding, but the play before was a stoppage of clock play. They turned around and then did a 10-second runoff to boot. So not only did they screw the rule up with the intentional grounding, but if you have a penalty like that in the final 2 minutes and the play before was a stoppage of clock, you don't have a 10-second runoff because the clock was already stopped. You only do that for plays that are in the field of play that would have continued the clock running. So they blew that call. Then they blew the 10-second runoff. Then they ran the clock at the whistle, which was the third mistake that they made. Basically, the next, so the Redskins clearly didn't realize that they were going to do that because they did the 10-second runoff, which under the rule, when you do a 10-second runoff, the clock stops. You don't then run the clock at the whistle. It's basically like a timeout. But they didn't do that. They ran the clock. Washington scrambled to the line and then ended up throwing the ball, getting sacked and fumbled, and it went into overtime. Now, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. New Orleans won this game. And you can put some of the blame on Gruden for not running the ball in that situation and just giving your field goal kicker a chance. It was first down. So run up the middle, get them on either side of the hash, wherever the guy's comfortable, take some more time off, spike it with 3 seconds left, because I don't think they had any timeouts, and then run your kicker out there and kick the game-winning field goal. So sure, you can blame Gruden, but you've got to be kidding me. You are a professional official, and you not only blow 1 call, not 2 calls, but 3 calls on the same singular play. Blew my mind. And once the Redskins were knocked out of field goal range and it went into overtime, there wasn't a person in the country that thought New Orleans wasn't going to win the game. Now, I give the Saints a lot of credit on the comeback. They didn't quit. They fought and fought and fought. And that team in that dome, it's something else. It's something to behold. But they were gifted the W by one official who doesn't know any of the rules of professional football, apparently. And it cost the Redskins the game. And that's the second game this year the Redskins were cost by the officials. I go back to week 1 on the clearly thrown ball that was batted backwards by Fletcher Cox that they call the fumble, which ended up being a fumble return for a touchdown, which blows my mind to begin with, that you can't look on the replay and see what every human being on earth saw. But that's week 1. This week, you can't make that call. You can't make that call. And then do 2 additional mistakes on top of it. And no one commented. No one says anything about it. But again, to me, a great comeback, a great win by New Orleans is marred by a really bad officiating call. And it's a shame that it came down to a call for both teams. And it's a shame that the win is marred for the Saints. But make no mistake about it, this is the second best team in football. I have a lot of respect for the Saints. The Redskins will be fine. They're going to end up winning their final 6 games and going 10-6. We'll see if it's good enough to get them in the postseason. And yes, I know they lost Thompson, but their schedule is woeful down the stretch. And they're getting healthier on defense, which is really where they need to get healthy. So that's my 2 cents on the game. Do you want to add anything, E?
The tale of 2 halves for Drew Brees. He threw a pick in the first quarter, 2 touchdowns in the second half. And then Mark Ingram is running like a beast right now. Him and Kamara are a great 1-2 punch. If Kamara keeps running like this, have him for Rookie of the Year over Kareem Hunt, because Kareem Hunt's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
But Dark Horse MVP, I know everybody's all over Carson Wentz, but man, what Mark Ingram is doing running the ball in New Orleans, you have to start giving him some love for MVP and start talking him up, because he is what's making this team tick. It's not Drew Brees right now. Drew Brees is basically handing the ball off. Against Buffalo a couple weeks ago, they ran 23 straight run plays. Yeah. That's according to Sean Payton when he was on the radio last week. 23. That's unheard of in New Orleans. Okay, that's how good their running backs are. So when you add Kamara, who's more of a speedster than Ingram, it packs a 1-2 punch. And then Breeze can also dump off the ball to either of those 2 backs, and they can run with it. It's ridiculous what they're doing. This is what's going to help their Saints win in the playoffs, whether that's in their own dome or whether that's outdoors if they have to go to Philadelphia if they're the number 2 seed, for instance. But what the Saints are doing on the ground is unprecedented. And Drew Brees had his second 300-yard passing game this season. He had 385 yards passing. So they made a comeback in the second half. Give them credit, like you said. A couple bad calls for Washington. But, Washington ends up getting those calls maybe in a couple weeks or next year. Some, it ends up evening out. But bad calls are bad calls, and every team goes through them. I'm not using that as an excuse for Washington. Don't put that on me right there. But you have to somehow overcome those calls. And, you also have to have a coaching staff who's on point with the rules, saying, no, that's not what the rule is. Yeah. This is how it is. So, I know it's split-second decisions and just hearing it and what they're going to do, but kind of got to know what the rules are and be like, no, this isn't it. This is the rule.
There's no question if I was the Redskins head coach in that situation, I would have been ejected from the game. I would have been ejected right then and there. I would have made a point to be ejected. That's how hard I would have protested. And again, this is why they need to allow for coaches to challenge penalties. Because pass interference, I was watching the Falcons-Seahawks game, and there was a play on before the Seahawks got the ball, on the final drive Atlanta had before they had a punt when the Seahawks ended up marching into field goal range and just missing the field goal. It should never have come down to that. There was a running play where the running back was clearly tackled by the face mask, and no penalty was called. You should be able to throw a challenge flag and go, no, you missed the face mask. That's a 15-yarder automatic first down. This game is over. And instead, you can't. And I just think if you're going to let them challenge, then let them challenge anything that's game-changing. Because all you would have to do is throw the challenge flag and go, where was the immediate duress that Kirk Cousins was under? Show me why that's intentional grounding. Because it looked to me like a throwaway on a miscommunication, which we see in the pocket all the time. But that's another story for another time. We'll do that on another segment. Take us home before we get to the Ram-Viking game, E. Kansas City at the Giants. I don't know what to say here. This game was an enigma.
Kansas City, the Giants was a snooze fest. It was basically field goals galore. There was a touchdown by the Giants. They missed the extra point, so they could have probably had this game put away in the fourth quarter. Instead, it went to overtime. Alex Smith, 230 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Kareem Hunt nowhere to be found. Travis Kelce had 109 yards receiving. And the Giants somehow, some way, got their second win of the season over a Kansas City team that started out 5-0 on the season, and now
1-4.
Now the record stands at 6-4. So they are 1-4 since starting out 5-0.
Yeah.
I would start sounding the alarm, and I wouldn't jump ship, but I would start sounding the alarm, saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" There have been whispers about Pat Mahomes coming in for Alex Smith, and this might have been one of those games where Alex Smith was the game manager and not the game winner quarterback as far as leading his team down the field and trying to get that touchdown that they so desperately needed. But I don't know if you can give New York credit in this. I mean, they seem to have somewhat given up on the season. The last two games, lackluster performances. I think you put this more on Kansas City gave this game away than anything. But New York got the win, and they have 2 wins now, so they're still ahead of San Francisco and Cleveland on the how many wins do you have so far?
Well, I will say this, that the Chiefs, if they want to get out of this 1-4 rut, they need to start giving the ball to Kareem Hunt, throwing to Kelce, and getting the ball to Tyreek Hill. They're going to end up falling completely apart. But I digress. So we're going to go ahead now and jump to the Rams and Vikings. So let me start with this. Eric, and LT, too, if you're watching. I was not in a good place at the end of that game. I wasn't in a good place for a few reasons. I wasn't in a good place because I don't think the Rams brought their A game whatsoever on defense. At least that was my thinking, or on offense in the first half. And then I just realized, no, the Vikings are just better than we are. And being a lifetime Ram fan, there are traditionally now 4 teams we can't stand with a passion. The Patriots and Niners, and not in that order, it would be more like Niners-Patriots, close to being a tie. Dallas and Minnesota. Because those are the 4 teams that have been our tormentors in one capacity or another. The Niners are a rival, so it is what it is. So Monday I went back and I looked at film. I did it old school style. I put the DVR up, I muted the television, and I just rewound and watched. And I have the ability, and I always have had this ability as a coach, to be able to watch all 22 guys on the field at the same time unfold. So there's not a lot of rewind play like some of you that might have played football out there might have remembered on film day when you go in there and the coach would run the same play on the clicker 19 different times because he had to see every single player. I could see all 22 at once. I don't know, maybe I'm a Rain Man of football, but I did rewind a couple of plays a couple of times to verify what I was seeing. And I'm going to make a statement here. First of all, to all the Viking fans out there, let me just acknowledge the obvious. There is a total role reversal here. The team that I thought the Vikings were and the team that I thought the Rams were are flipped now. The Vikings have made a believer out of me, not because they beat the Rams, but because they beat the crap out of the Rams. And the Rams look like a team that's going to be a wild card one and done, maybe win their home playoff game and then get beat on the road. And Minnesota looks like a team that can really contend for a Super Bowl. I have not seen a cornerback safety tandem. And mind you, Minnesota's missing one of their safeties. I have not seen a cornerback safety tandem this talented on one team since the 1989 San Francisco 49ers. When they had Chet Brooks, Ronnie Lott, Don Griffin, and Tim McKyer. These guys are sticky. They lock down on a receiver, and they don't let you breathe. When you're able to deflect the ball, okay, as you guys can see, I'm not deflecting it with this hand, which is what you call the typical deflecting hand. It's the opposite side hand. When you're able to deflect the ball with your play side hand, the guy you're covering, you're not only in good position, you're in perfect position. And at no point were the Rams able to become unglued from the Viking DBs. And even though the Rams moved the ball and they got the ball through the air, that was more of a product of Jared Goff throwing laser beams all over the field and getting it there in tight coverage. The Vikings front four, it's not that they impressed me, but they got my attention. Everyone had been talking about them. I don't think they're as good as people are saying. I don't think they're as bad as I was saying. I think they're somewhere right there in between. And they're getting better every week. Because I did watch a little bit of the Viking-Lion game earlier in the year. And then as far as their linebackers go, Barr is a beast. And some people might call him a dirty player. I don't think he's a dirty player. I think he's an old-school linebacker. And he will knock the paint off of your helmet and knock your mouthpiece out of your face. And if you're not ready for it, that's bad on you. Offensively, this is where I'm going to give the Vikings credit. Case Keenum wasn't going to get touched in this game. It's like the front five for Minnesota said, we don't care how good this Ram defensive line is, you're not touching our quarterback, period. That second half, especially the end of the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter, was probably the best offensive line play that I've seen from the Vikings since the 1970s when they were dominant. And that's saying a lot. So I learned a lot more about Minnesota and my Rams watching this game unfold. And while an apology is certainly in order, because I did my share of trash talking to the Viking fans out there, and I got a very big piece of humble pie this weekend, I think it's also time to look at the Rams a little more realistically. It's not that I think the Rams have beaten bad opponents, but this is now the third really good defense they've seen. And in two of those games, they were unable to score more than 10 points. And that worries me. So, look, here's my three takeaways for the Rams, and then I'll let you talk. For Minnesota, I give all the credit in the world. They beat our butts, and they were clearly the better team, and I was wrong. But Jared Goff continues to impress the hell out of me. Todd Gurley's got to get more involved in this offense when the team doesn't have success running the ball early. McVay's going back to his days in Washington where, okay, you know what? We're only getting 3 yards a carry in the first quarter. We're going to abandon the running game completely. You've got to stick with the running game. Gurley's a workhorse. The third thing that I took away from this is Robert Quinn is an average to okay defensive end, linebacker, whatever you want to call him. He is not as good as people make him out to be. That guy is literally MIA. They need to put his face on a milk carton because he is gone missing. And we need to find him for his family's sake because I don't know where the man is. He's nowhere to be found. With that being said, I think the Rams got some work to do in the draft on defense. And fortunately for the Rams, correct me if I'm wrong, E, they do have a first-round pick, or did they trade that? I can't remember. But they've got... I think they have it. Then they trade like a 2 for Sammy Watkins. That's what they did. You're right. So they've got to really focus on defense in this draft, I think, to help Wade Phillips out a little bit. The Rams lost both their corners when the game was 7-7. That clearly hurt them. But Thielen and the Vikings offense they were the better team. And I'm sorry to the Viking fans for all the trash talking I did. I was clearly wrong. My evaluation of this team was perhaps a little too biased and not enough clear-headedness. But I'm telling you, after watching film on Monday and Tuesday, they're going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out. And watch out. Your takeaway, E. And credit to you, Eric, because you called this one.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't think I would be too popular with the Ram family, but to just it's just what I saw out of the Vikings and what I saw out of the Rams. McKinnon had a great day, game, going for 95 yards. I thought Keenum was pretty spot on for the most part. Thielen had another big game. Diggs didn't show up too much, but Thielen's big game came on a 65-yard slant that he just beat everybody down the field with. And you're right with as far as the Rams and what they need to draft. Who knows if Tremaine Johnson will be back? I know he's on the
franchise.
He's on the one-year franchise tag. So I don't really foresee the Rams doing that again with him as far as the franchise tag. They're not going to Kirk Cousins him as I think the new term is going to be. But there's going to be some corners and some secondary help that the Rams are going to need, and whether or not they get that free agency of the draft remains to be seen. But I thought the Vikings were going to do exactly what I thought they were going to do against Gurley, and that was shut him down. The Vikings have a pretty stout run defense, and they the Rams lost Robert Woods in the game. He's going to be out a few weeks, unfortunately. That's going to make their offense run more through Gurley, and now Watkins should be more involved along with Kupp. I don't take anything away from Higbee either. There should be a lot more passes to go. I think you're going to see Goff kind of scale it back a little bit more and have the Rams go, the 1984 way, and just hand the ball off to their best player. But I think all teams suffer this kind of loss. It's one of those where you feel good about yourselves and you go on the road. And the Rams were 4-0 on the road, and they suffered their first loss. I wouldn't, as I said with who was the team that I talked about as far as sounding the alarm.
Kansas City.
I wouldn't sound the alarm quite yet with the Rams, but let's see how they come back in the next 2 weeks. I know the second week of that. The next 2 weeks is against Philadelphia, and that'll be a big test. So you see how the Rams bounce back the next week and go from there. I mean, they're 7-3, and the Seahawks keep losing. So unless the Cardinals all of a sudden become the what year was that they went to the Super Bowl?
08.
When they become that year Cardinals, then you got something to worry about. But I think you can take a deep breath, especially after Seattle lost on Monday night. We'll get to that game, but the Rams are still sitting in a really good position. So they just need to go back to the basics and right the ship. Maybe just tighten up that defense, that run defense a little bit, and they'll be all right.
Well, I will tell you, Heath Evans is an idiot. How that man has a job is laughable. It just goes to show you that the NFL Network doesn't even try to get talented people or even okay people to do their analysis. Heath Evans said the Rams will go 0-4 in the next 4 weeks. I'm like, really, Heath? So you think the Rams are going to lose at Arizona? They're going to lose at Minnesota, home against New Orleans, at Arizona, and home against Philly. I think what he meant to say is the Rams are going to lose 3 of their next 4, or 4 of their next 5, because after the Philadelphia game, they go to Seattle. I think Heath Evans needs to do everyone a favor and retire. You suck at your job. You are not any good. Your professional analysis as a former player is laughable and inexcusable. Even the dog, even a broken clock is right twice a year, twice a day. So I don't give him too many kudos for calling the Viking game. A lot of his buddies had called the Viking game. I'll take that one on the chin because I come across looking like a homer and an idiot for picking him the way that I did. But losing at Arizona, yeah. The Rams have 4 very winnable games. Tennessee in Tennessee, San Francisco at home, Seattle at Seattle, and Arizona at Arizona. So even if they do stumble, 11-5, 10-6 is very plausible. So you're right. It's not time to sound the alarm, but we'll do our picks for the Thursday games tomorrow. Let's just say it doesn't look good. in the Coliseum against the Saints right now. And you know what? That's okay because they get Arizona after that, and they get to kind of regroup a little bit. So we'll see what happens here and how these games break down. The loss on Monday night was huge for the Rams. There's no question. I'm glad you mentioned that. We will get to that. Buffalo at San Diego, guys, look, I said this had the potential to be an upset because ultimately we don't know how Nate Peterson was going to play. Apparently, after 3 quarters, we realized how Nate Peterson was going to play. And the potential of an upset was not even remotely close. So I did not pick the Bills to win. I picked the Chargers to win. But I believe I did. Do I have my picks with me right here? I better have picked them. I know that's what I was leaning towards. I'll have to go back and look. But maybe I did pick Buffalo. That was a bad pick. Either way, you don't know when a rookie quarterback takes the field how they're going to play. They could be world beaters like Russell Wilson, or they could look like Peterman. And there's not a lot to say here. The Chargers won a game they were supposed to win. They played suffocating defense. They're starting to get hot. It looks like they're making a push. They're in a very weak division. I think they're the second best team in that division at the moment. And, we'll see what the next few weeks carry for San Diego. They got 6 games left, and, I think they have 1 or 2 games against Kansas City, E?
I believe just 1.
Okay. So, I mean, they've got a couple of tough ones along the way, but we'll see how that unfolds. You wanted to break down the Cincinnati Bengals Denver Bronco game. Go ahead.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Denver, basically is what I thought I was going to see from the Bengals. I like that they came out. They actually threw the ball. Danny Dalton didn't have a great game. The running game didn't get off the ground. But Willie Marshall is Joe Mixon at 49 yards. Osweiler had 254. Demaryius Thomas had 64 yards receiving. Those are the passing and receiving leaders. So, as you know, Denver's defense was doing its best job to try to shut down Cincinnati. Yeah. Here's the problem, folks. Denver is lost right now. They have no identity. They have been playing quarterback musical chairs. Monday, after the game on Sunday, they fired their offensive coordinator, Mike McCoy. I'm sorry, but he didn't deserve to lose his job. He will be quickly employed in January, February, or March, somewhere around the first quarter of the new year, because he is a good offensive coordinator. He just had no talent to work with. So what do? Well, you can't fire a first-year head coach or in the middle of a first-year head coach in Vance Joseph. So we're going to go for the next guy who is going to have his head on the chopping block, and that's Mike McCoy. So Mike McCoy has technically been fired within a calendar year from 2 different teams, which doesn't happen very often, but it happens. Yep. Listen, Cincinnati came out and did something in the second half where they ended up throwing the ball, and AJ Green got his touchdown, which really solidified Cincinnati. Now, the game was 20-17 Cincinnati. It wasn't as close as 3 points. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, Osweiler had 254 yards receiving. Well, guess what? As I mentioned, they're playing quarterback musical chairs. Osweiler is going to be a healthy scratch in the upcoming game, and Paxton Lynch is going to start. Now, when Paxton Lynch performs up to Nathan Peterman levels, which is 55 yards passing and 5 interceptions, who is going to be the scapegoat then? Because we all know John Elway's not going to get fired. Yeah. Okay, it's going to take a monumentous turn of events for Elway to even be considered fired by the Broncos and their ownership. Mm-hmm. So my question is, when Lynch does that, who is going to take the fall? Because again, it's not going to be Joseph. Okay, there's only so many people you can fire before you actually have to start looking at yourself. Yeah. So with the win, if Denver would have came back and won, would McCoy still have a job? Would Osweiler still be a starter? Good question. I don't know. I still think McCoy would have had a job there, but it's been a revolving door there as far as who's playing on offense for a while. And from what I understand, Demaryius Thomas was shopped at the deadline by the Broncos because they thought, looked a little slower. He wasn't in the best game shape, but he shows up. Demaryius Thomas, you know what? I would have taken Demaryius Thomas. I would have offered you a fourth-round draft pick, and I would have taken Demaryius Thomas off your hands, and he would have been lightning in a bottle for me.
Yeah.
Okay, but they didn't trade him, so they might look to do that in the offseason. But I think the Broncos are in a little bit more disarray than a lot of other teams that are out there. It's just that they're not being talked about as much.
No, well, because
give Cincinnati credit. Give Cincy credit. They went into a tough place to play against a tough defense, and they came out with a victory. It's another game that Cincinnati should have had, but to me, I think it might be a little too late in the year for Cincinnati to start making that move.
Oh, no question. Look, they're not going to talk about Denver. They're one of the go-to 6. New England at Oakland. The Raiders are done. Take it away quickly.
Yeah, Raiders are done. Again, I mentioned on the show last week, this game was played in Mexico City. Brady likes it there. Belichick doesn't want to go back anytime soon. Oh, hey, guess what? Oakland fired the defensive coordinator, Ken Norton Jr. Again, another scapegoat because, nothing can go against Jack Del Rio, or nothing can go against the offensive coordinator because the Raiders have put up 8 points. Listen, Brady had a huge day. Brady, in games played outside of the United States, Brady has over 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns in all 3 games that he's done, twice in London and now Mexico City. He likes to throw anywhere, so put him on the moon, he'll probably throw for 600 yards.
Yeah.
New England took this game, and they went out and they took care of business basically from the get-go. Gostkowski, what an animal. I know they're 7,000 plus feet above sea level, but a 62-yard field goal, that football would have been good from 70. That's how good that kick was.
God, life is good in New England. Life is good in New England and Pittsburgh. When you look and you say 6 teams from this conference has to make the playoffs, there's only 3 playoff teams in this entire conference. We have
right now, yes, absolutely.
I mean, and Jacksonville has Blake Bortles. So you're looking at Pittsburgh or New England if you're in one of those 2 cities and you're going, how lucky can we be that we have such a awful conference that we know every year our division isn't going to do anything to give us a run, and our conference isn't going to do anything to challenge us. And we can keep rolling out average to mediocre teams and be 14-2. Must be a wonderful life.
Here's the funny thing about mentioning Jacksonville. This week alone, okay, and I'm going to get to my Jacksonville point here in a moment. Antonio Brown on Thursday night had 144 yards receiving. Brandon Cooks had 149 yards receiving for the Patriots. There have been 2 wide receivers against Jacksonville who have gone over 70 yards. Can you name them?
I'm guessing Brown and Cooks.
Well, they haven't. Jacksonville hasn't played New England. Brown is one of them. The second one happened this past week. Corey Coleman, coming off of injured reserve with a broken hand, putting up 80 yards receiving against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Only 2 have gone over 70 yards. Crazy. So I would love to see a Jacksonville-New England matchup. I probably already know what the outcome would be, but I would love to see that defense against Brady.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Look, Philly at Dallas. I want to give Lauren Russell a shout out here. She's the one that does She Got Sports. She made a mention about Dak Prescott and Jared Goff and how the situation they were drafted into was extremely different, and how Dak Prescott was given the perfect situation with a top 3 running back, the best offensive line in football, talented offense around him, and a strong defense, and Jared Goff went to the Rams. And yet you look at him now, and all you have to do to make Dak Prescott look like the quarterback for Mississippi State we all kind of thought he was, is you remove Ezekiel Elliott and go for it. Dak, let's see what you got. And Dak don't got much. 14 points in 2 games, I believe it is. Yeah. Philadelphia is a superior team, there's no question. But Atlanta and that vaunted defense only allowed 7 against Dak and the Dallas Cowboys. Season's over in Dallas. Philly rolled them. Now it's up to Philadelphia. They've won the East. I don't care if they haven't clinched or not. They've won the East. Philly now turns their attention to the NFC and tries to get separation. I promise you right now, there isn't a bigger fan of the Rams than the Philadelphia Eagles. They're saying, beat those Saints, They're rooting for Detroit on Thanksgiving. And then when the Eagles play the Rams, they're going to try to say, okay, we can beat the Rams and get separation from this conference. Because that's really what Philly's looking at now is how soon they can lock up the 1 seed. They are a complete team. I know their offensive line has some issues, but those issues go away rapidly when you can hand the ball off to Ajayi and let him run rugged all over the other team. And that's what Philly's going to do to take the pressure off of Carson Wentz. It's no longer the Carson Wentz show. It's a complete Eagles team, and they look like a juggernaut. And they looked awesome in this thrashing of Dallas.
Really quick, which Philly team is better, this year's Philly team or 2004 that went to the Super Bowl?
It's not even a question. This Eagles team, by a lot. Not only do they have a better quarterback, sorry, Donovan, but they have a better running back in Ajayi. Huh?
Than Ryan Westbrook?
Yes. Westbrook.
Do you take Alshon Jeffrey over Terrell Owens?
No. I would take T.O. over him. But I definitely like their tight end better than the one Philly had. I like this tight end now, Ertz. So, wasn't that?
Ertz is a beast. Ertz is a beast. You know what Ertz did this past week? 2 catches, 8 yards.
I know.
They really didn't need him.
That's okay.
They didn't really need him, okay?
You still...
4 turnovers by Dallas was crazy.
Yeah, but you still have the best fantasy football name of all times. It hurts when I fart.
It hurts when I fart?
Yep. That was almost as good as the wet farts. All right.
The wet farts are still in use.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right, Atlanta at Seattle. I said the Raiders was going to be an upset, so I was really off on 2 of them, but I was really close on 3 of them, and I even called 1 of them. Now, I picked Atlanta to begin with because it just felt like Atlanta could get the job done. Like I said, the face mask penalty should have never had the Blair Walsh situation unfold. I give the Seahawks credit where credit's due, but they're not going to be able to win down the stretch with just Russell Wilson. Now, they play the 49ers next. That should be a dub, but they've got a stretch coming up themselves. I don't know where they're going to get a win outside of San Francisco and Arizona in the next 2 weeks. Well, they play Arizona at the end of the year. But after San Francisco, they've got about a 2-week stretch where it's going to be really tough, and you could throw the Rams in there. Look, the Seahawks are beatable at home. The Falcons did exactly what they had to do. And those 2 guys on defense being out for the season, that's going to be what keeps the Seahawks out of the playoffs now. Big shout out to Atlanta. The Rams needed that one big time. Eric, I got nothing really to add to this game except Matty Ice looked really good. The combination running game that the Falcons brought out was really good. And I'm just really glad Atlanta did what they were supposed to do finally. But once again, another 4th quarter lead nearly blown. Take it away. Wrap us up. Take us home.
Yeah. What I found very interesting about this game was that Seattle has no run game. Okay. Now they ended up signing Mike James from their practice squad the previous Tuesday to play on Monday, and he actually looked pretty good. He played with the 49ers. He was drafted out of South Carolina back in 2015, and he got into a few games, and he ran with poise. He ran with determination, and he looked good. He started looking good in this game too. It looked like he might have been the running back that they needed, kind of like what Procise was last year, Rawls was last year. Guess what? Injuries happen. Well, guess what happened Monday night? Groin injury from Mike James, so he's out for 2-3 weeks. When your quarterback is also your rushing leader, you have major problems.
Yeah.
Guess who was another force again for Atlanta on their defensive line? Yes, Adrian Claiborne. Not only did he have 6 sacks the prior week against Dallas, well, he also had a fumble return for a touchdown against Seattle. Dude is a monster right now, and nobody can seem to block him or what. You might have to put 4 guys on the line there, chip them, trip them, block them in the back, do whatever, so the refs can't see. But Atlanta escaped with a victory. Blair Walsh has only made 3 of his last 8 field goals, and that 52-yard field goal at the end looked really good. It just ended up being short, so must not have gotten enough leg on it, I guess. But But yeah, give it credit. They dropped Russell Wilson to 37-8 at home. Um, he still has the third best home record with a minimum of 40 starts. So he is a beast at home when he has everything going for him. Jimmy Graham looked really good for the Seahawks, and he's getting back to those Saints days when all Drew Brees would do is throw to him.
Yeah.
But the Seahawks are in trouble, and the Falcons, they're 6-4, just like they were this time last year before they went on an improbable run to the Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying. All right.
Yeah. I still think there needs a little bit of work to be done, and just want to shout out to the city of Atlanta. They saw the Georgia Dome get imploded yesterday, so there goes one of their stadiums.
Yeah.
They say goodbye to. So.
Yeah, I want to give a thanks to Tavon, Minnesota, a gentleman that made some really good points and started my morning off on Monday on a good note. As a Viking fan, I thought you were respectful and rightfully gloating, but not in a way that was gloating. You were just simply stating the truth. I want to give a shout out to you on that. Again, Lauren Russell, great show. I love watching it. I'm really going to try to get your subscribers up. You got more than me, but it's not like I can help that much. But then again, you do have like 4-minute shows, so that's a good thing for you. I can't shut up, so I'm not, and neither can you, Eric. That's why our shows are so long. But we treat this like a real sports show with real analysis, not just a quick little blurb about our team, and maybe that's why they're so long. But just a shout out to all my subscribers. All of you guys that have followed me, continue to follow me, comment. Even those of you that may get frustrated with me from time to time, you keep coming back, and I appreciate that. And I know me and Eric wouldn't be doing this nearly as much if we didn't have such good support. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Feel free to comment and subscribe down below. Minnesota Viking fans, last thing I'm going to say, congrats to your team. You are definitely the better team. You are definitely one of the better teams in the NFC, and good luck the rest of the year. Eric, do you want to add anything to the fans before we go?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. Our next show, which we're actually going to do Wednesday night, we're going to do our picks for Thanksgiving and for the following Sunday, Monday. I'd like to touch on Roger Goodell's contract extension. And in the comments, guys, I'd like to hear what you think about his extension, whether he deserves it or not. Just a quick yes or no, and maybe a little bit of why, because I think it's big for football. Not necessarily in good or bad way, but what your overall thoughts are, because his contract technically doesn't expire until 2019, and so he's looking at an extension with a lot of interesting perks. And then he's going to be the commissioner when football possibly hits a work stoppage in 2021. That we'll also might touch on as well. But I'd just like to hear your guys' thoughts on your Goodell's contract extension, and that it should be wrapped up here in the next couple of weeks. So just put a comment, yay, nay, why, it makes too much money, or the league's going to crap or something. I just want to hear what you guys think.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and remember, go Rams!